the bear who painted the wind. Summary: in a quiet valley, a gentle bear named Bram paints the colors of the wind on the sky each dusk. When one evening the colors vanish, Bram journeys to find his lost inspiration, learning that beauty returns when we notice the world again with wonder. Moral: wonder lives in the way we see the world. Segment 1: The Quiet Valley. The valley where Bram lived was a sanctuary of peace, nestled between towering, snow-capped mountains that loomed like silent sentinels. The air was thick with the scent of pine and earth, and the sound of the river flowing over smooth stones was like a soft lullaby. The valley was never disturbed by the rush of the outside world, and in its stillness, the landscape appeared to breathe with a gentle rhythm. Each evening, the sun dipped behind the mountains, casting long shadows across the valley floor. This was when Bram worked his magic. Bram, a large bear with thick, dark brown fur, stood at the edge of the valley every evening, a solitary figure against the vast sky. His broad shoulders and massive paws gave him an imposing presence, but his eyes, soft and full of wonder, reflected his gentle nature. His fur was thick and slightly matted from the evening breeze, but it was the brush in his paw that defined him. Each night, he would mix pigments with a careful hand, creating vibrant strokes across the sky, painting the colors of the wind that danced through the valley. As the colors swirled and merged, the entire valley would seem to sigh in appreciation. But tonight, as Bram stood beneath the fading light, something felt wrong. The sky, which had always burst into vivid hues, was now a dull, lifeless gray. Bram raised his brush, a sudden weight in his chest. His heart, usually light with the joy of creating, felt heavy and uncertain. What had happened to the colors? The air around him felt colder, and the wind, once lively, now whispered in muted tones. Bram stood still, his heart sinking, his brush trembling slightly as the world seemed to fall silent around him. Segment 2: The Lost Colors. Bram's heart thudded heavily in his chest as he stared at the gray expanse above. The wind no longer danced with the same energy, and the world around him seemed eerily still, as if holding its breath. His large, clumsy paws gripped the brush tighter, but no matter how he moved it across the air, the pigments refused to settle into the vibrant swirls they once created. The wind that had always been his muse had vanished, leaving only a hollow silence in its wake. He lowered his brush and sat heavily on the soft grass at the edge of the valley. The animals, who usually gathered to watch his work, were nowhere to be seen. Even the river, normally full of life and music, seemed to have quieted. Bram sighed deeply, feeling a strange ache in his chest. The weight of the quiet valley pressed on him, and for the first time in his life, he felt utterly alone. The bear's mind swirled with confusion. What had happened to the wind, the colors, the beauty he painted every evening? Was it something he had done, or had the world simply stopped noticing him? His thick fur bristled slightly in the cool evening air, but the sensation was not the usual comfort of a soft breeze. It was a chill that seemed to seep into his bones. Determined, Bram rose to his feet, wiping his face with one large paw. He couldn't sit here, waiting for the sky to return to its colorful glory. Something had changed, and it was up to him to find out why. With a deep breath, He looked at the darkening horizon and made a quiet decision. He would journey to find the colors, to find his lost inspiration. And so, with a heavy heart but steady resolve, Bram set off into the twilight, leaving the familiar valley behind, unsure of what he would find or how he would ever restore the colors to the sky. Segment 3. Into the unknown. Bram walked slowly at first, his massive paws leaving deep impressions in the soft earth as he made his way through the dense forest that bordered the valley. The trees, normally full of life and rustling leaves, stood eerily silent now. The once lively forest seemed to have been drained of its usual energy, and Bram couldn't shake the feeling that the very air was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. His thick fur ruffled against the cool breeze, but there was no warmth in it, no familiar comfort. It was as if the world had stopped moving. The wind itself had forgotten how to dance. Bram's mind raced with thoughts, questions swirling like the very pigments he used to paint. Why had the wind stopped? Where had the colors gone? And most importantly, why couldn't he feel the same sense of awe that he had always felt when painting the sky? He pressed on, following the path that led him deeper into the forest, his eyes scanning the darkness for some clue. The trees seemed to stretch endlessly ahead, their branches like gnarled fingers reaching toward him. A slight tremor ran through Bram's body as he felt a pang of unease. Despite the calm of the valley, the world beyond was wild, unpredictable. As the moon rose high above the treetops, casting a soft, silvery light on the forest floor, Bram paused. Ahead, he spotted a faint glow, just a flicker of light that danced like a distant star in the shadowy underbrush. Intrigued, Bram padded closer, his heart pounding with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Could this be the spark of inspiration he was searching for? He had no idea what awaited him, but he knew he couldn't turn back now. With a deep breath, Bram stepped forward, determined to follow the faint light wherever it led, trusting that it might help him find the lost colors of the wind. Segment 4. The Whispering Light. Bram approached the glow cautiously, his steps quiet in the thick forest. The soft, silver light seemed to pulse with a rhythm, like a heartbeat of its own, drawing him forward with an almost magnetic pull. The air around him was thick with mystery, and though the forest had once felt like home, now it seemed foreign, alive with strange energy. Every shadow seemed deeper, every sound more amplified. He could hear his own heartbeat thudding in his ears, and the distant call of an owl echoed through the stillness. As he moved closer, the light grew brighter, revealing an unusual sight, a small clearing bathed in moonlight. In the center of the clearing stood a tall, ancient tree with twisting branches that reached high into the sky. Its bark shimmered, almost translucent in the moon's glow, and nestled within its roots was the source of the light, a delicate, glowing flower. Its petals were a pale shade of blue, almost ethereal, and they pulsed with the same gentle rhythm Bram had felt in the air. Bram's heart raced with wonder. He had never seen anything like this before. He stepped forward, unable to resist the pull. The moment his paw touched the soft earth near the flower, a soft voice whispered through the wind, gentle but unmistakable. "You seek the colors of the wind." Bram froze, his body tense with surprise. The voice wasn't loud, but it was clear, as though it was speaking directly into his soul. He looked around, but the forest was still, the air thick with silence once more. Was the flower speaking? Or was it the wind? Bram's eyes widened in disbelief, but a strange sense of peace settled over him, and his instincts urged him to listen. "Yes," Bram said softly, his voice almost a whisper as he gazed down at the glowing flower. "I've lost them, the colors, the wind. I don't know how to find them again." The soft voice, as soothing as a lullaby, responded, "The colors are never truly lost. They lie within the heart of the one who paints. But to find them, you must first rediscover the wonder within yourself." Bram's brow furrowed. "Rediscover wonder?" he repeated, his voice full of confusion. "How do I do that?" The flower's glow dimmed slightly, and a soft breeze stirred, carrying with it the faintest hint of color in the air, like the softest whisper of something forgotten. "Journey beyond the familiar," the voice said. "The wind flows where the heart is open, and only when you see with wonder will the colors return." Bram stood still, absorbing the words, his chest tightening with a mix of hope and uncertainty. He had always painted from the heart, but now, it seemed, his heart was clouded. To find the wind's colors again, he needed to see the world anew. But how? What had changed? The question swirled in his mind as the flower's glow slowly faded into the darkness, leaving him alone in the clearing once more. The forest was silent again, but Bram no longer felt the chill he had felt earlier. There was a warmth within him now, a flicker of something that felt like the beginning of hope. He knew that his journey had only just begun. With renewed determination, Bram turned back toward the path, ready to face whatever lay ahead in search of the lost colors of the wind. Segment 5. The Journey Ahead. Bram stepped away from the glowing flower, its soft light now a memory fading into the darkened forest behind him. The words echoed in his mind, swirling with uncertainty and wonder. Journey beyond the familiar. He knew that the valley he had always called home, with its gentle breeze and familiar hills, was no longer enough. He had to venture farther, to places where he had never painted before, and perhaps find the spark of wonder he had lost along the way. The forest seemed different now, no longer an eerie silence, but a place full of hidden promise. Bram's steps were steadier, his heart a little lighter as he ventured deeper into the woods. The trees here were taller, their trunks thick and gnarled, their leaves rustling softly as the breeze picked up. For the first time in what felt like forever, the air smelled fresh and alive. A soft scent of moss, wet earth, and distant flowers filled his senses, grounding him in the present. As Bram walked, he couldn't help but notice the little things, the way the moonlight danced across the leaves, casting shadows that seemed to flicker with life, or the way the river's babble seemed to have a deeper rhythm tonight, almost like it was trying to tell him something. It was as if the world itself had been waiting for him to open his heart again. Bram's thick fur brushed against the rough bark of the trees, and with each step, he felt his body grow more attuned to the earth beneath him. He had always been a part of this world, but now, there was a new understanding blooming within him. It wasn't just the colors of the wind he needed to find, it was the wonder in the world around him. He had taken it all for granted, but now, with each step, the forest seemed to be inviting him to look at it with new eyes. Hours passed, and the forest gradually gave way to a wide, open meadow. The moon hung high above, casting its silver light over the tall grasses, which swayed gently in the night breeze. Bram paused at the edge of the meadow, the vastness before him almost overwhelming. He had never ventured this far from his valley, and the expanse before him felt like a new frontier. But instead of feeling fearful, Bram felt a strange pull, a quiet yearning to step into the unknown. With a deep breath, he crossed the meadow, his paws sinking softly into the cool grass. The landscape stretched out before him, bathed in the soft glow of moonlight. He could feel his heart opening with each step, the mystery of the night sky above and the earth below grounding him in the moment. As he reached the far edge of the meadow, he saw a distant ridge in the distance, shrouded in mist. It beckoned him forward, a place where he might find the answers he was looking for. Bram stood still for a moment, the soft wind rustling through the grass, and closed his eyes. He could feel the rhythm of the earth beneath him, the pulse of the land that had always been his home. With a renewed sense of purpose, he opened his eyes and began to walk toward the mist-covered ridge. Whatever lay ahead, he was ready. He knew that to find the colors of the wind again, he first needed to rediscover the wonder that had always been within him, waiting to be seen. Segment 6. The Misty Ridge. The mist that hung over the distant ridge seemed almost magical, swirling in soft, ethereal tendrils that stretched and curled like whispers in the night. As Bram walked toward it, the air grew cooler, the soft hum of the wind around him now tinged with a sense of mystery. The meadow behind him slowly faded into the night, and the world seemed to narrow, focusing all of its attention on the ridge ahead. Bram's large paws carried him steadily across the uneven ground, his fur rustling with the movement. The scent of damp earth grew stronger as he neared the mist, and the distant sound of the river was replaced by the soft, eerie quiet of the fog. He could barely see the path ahead, the moonlight obscured by the dense fog that clung to the earth like a heavy blanket. Yet there was something inviting about the mist, something that drew him in, urging him forward even though the way was unclear. As Bram entered the mist, he felt a slight shift in the air. It was heavier here, laden with the scent of pine and earth, but also something else, something familiar. A soft crackling noise caught his attention, and Bram looked around, his sharp eyes trying to penetrate the fog. To his surprise, a faint glow appeared ahead of him, flickering like a distant lantern. It wasn't much, but it was enough to guide him forward. With each step, the mist seemed to grow thicker, swallowing him whole. Bram's heartbeat quickened, but he forced himself to remain calm. He had faced many challenges in his life, but this felt different. This felt like a test, a trial of his courage and determination. He needed to press on, no matter how uncertain the path seemed. As he moved forward, the glowing light grew brighter, revealing more of its source, a cluster of glowing mushrooms nestled at the base of a towering tree. Their pale blue glow shimmered like starlight, casting a soft, calming light across the fog. Bram paused, mesmerized by the delicate beauty of the mushrooms, their light flickering in perfect harmony with the beat of his heart. He lowered his head, gazing at the mushrooms, and for a moment, everything around him felt suspended in time. The mist, the soft glow, and the cool air all blended together into a quiet symphony that calmed his racing thoughts. This was a place of stillness and peace, and it was here, in this strange, magical moment, that Bram realized something important. The colors he had been searching for weren't just external. He needed to find the brightness within himself first. A gentle breeze stirred through the fog, and as Bram inhaled deeply, he felt the weight of his worries begin to lift. The world around him seemed to open, the mist parting just slightly to reveal the path ahead. It was as if the ridge was telling him to continue, to trust in the journey even if the way wasn't clear. The glow of the mushrooms flickered one last time, and Bram felt his heart stir with quiet anticipation. With renewed resolve, Bram stood tall, his large paws firm beneath him. He stepped forward once more, ready to follow the path the mist had revealed, knowing that whatever lay ahead, he was on the right path. The colors would return. He could feel it deep within him. All he had to do was keep moving forward. Segment 7. The Heart of the Mist. As Bram continued through the mist, the world around him seemed to shift with every step. The fog thickened again, wrapping around him like an endless veil, and the soft glow from the mushrooms soon disappeared behind him. It was as if the path he was following had become a world of its own, one where time and space no longer had any meaning. The sound of his steps was muffled by the mist, and the forest seemed distant, as though it were held back by an invisible barrier. But Bram did not stop. His large body moved with steady determination, and his mind, once filled with confusion and doubt, was now clear with purpose. He understood now that the journey wasn't just about finding the lost colors of the wind. It was about rediscovering the wonder that had once made the world so vibrant to him. Every brushstroke he had made in the past had come from his heart, but it was his heart that had grown clouded, his view of the world limited by the weight of his own expectations. The air grew heavier, and Bram's breath began to form small clouds in the coolness. But even as the mist thickened, something within him shifted. The quiet, the stillness, the uncertainty, it all seemed to be drawing him inward, inviting him to look deeper. He paused for a moment and closed his eyes, allowing the mist to wash over him, feeling the cool droplets settle on his fur. Suddenly, a sound broke the silence, a soft rustling, as though something was moving within the fog. Bram's eyes snapped open, and his heart quickened. The mist parted just enough for him to glimpse a figure, a shadow, moving silently through the fog. It was fleeting, just a flicker of motion, but it was enough to capture Bram's attention. He stepped forward cautiously, his senses alert. As he walked, the figure moved again, just out of reach, leading him deeper into the mist. The strange tug of curiosity pulled him forward, and he began to follow the movement, his paws pressing lightly against the soft earth, as though the ground itself was guiding him. The mist shifted again, and the figure ahead of him became clearer. It was a fox, small and swift, with fur that shimmered in the moonlight. The fox's eyes, bright and intelligent, locked onto Bram's, and for a moment, Bram saw something in those eyes, something that reminded him of the world he had once seen with such awe. The fox's gaze seemed to say, "Follow me." Bram's heart raced, and without thinking, he followed the fox as it led him through the mist. It moved with effortless grace, weaving through the fog with ease, and Bram felt his steps becoming lighter, more sure, as he followed its path. The fog around him began to thin, and the air, once heavy, seemed to clear with each step. Finally, the fox stopped at the edge of a large stone, its fur glistening like silver in the pale light. Bram stood beside it, panting slightly, but filled with a new sense of clarity. The fox turned to him, its eyes still locked onto his, as though it were waiting for something. Bram's breath slowed as he realized that this wasn't just a moment of guidance, it was a moment of understanding. The fox's presence was not only a guide through the mist, it was the symbol of something Bram had lost. The wind, the colors, the beauty of the world. He had been searching for them externally, but the fox, like the flower he had encountered earlier, was showing him that everything he needed was already within him. The wonder was there, beneath the layers of doubt and fear, waiting to be uncovered. Bram closed his eyes and took a deep breath, feeling the air rush through his fur. The wind was back, It had never truly left. It had only been waiting for him to remember how to feel it again. The fox nodded once, its job complete, and with a final glance at Bram, it disappeared into the mist, leaving Bram alone with the stillness of the night. But this time, Bram didn't feel alone. He felt connected to the mist, to the world, and to himself. And in that quiet moment, he knew that the colors of the wind would return. All he had to do was open his heart once more. Segment 8. The Return of the Wind. As the fox disappeared into the mist, Bram stood still for a long moment, letting the quiet of the forest wash over him. The fog had thinned significantly, and though the night air was cool, it no longer felt oppressive. It was as though the world had opened up, offering him a new way of seeing. Bram felt an unfamiliar lightness in his chest, a peace he hadn't known in a long time. The journey had taken him far, deeper than he ever expected to go, but now it felt as though he was beginning to understand the true meaning of his quest. The wind had returned. He could feel it, gently brushing against his thick fur, weaving through the branches above. It was not the wild, rushing wind that he had once painted with abandon. It was soft, gentle, and steady. It no longer felt like something outside of him. It was within him, flowing through his body like a silent current, connecting him to everything around him. Bram opened his eyes, his gaze sweeping over the landscape. The mist was all but gone now, and the moonlight bathed the forest in its cool glow. The shadows of the trees stretched long across the ground, and the leaves rustled softly in the breeze. It was as if the whole world was alive with a quiet energy, waiting for something, waiting for him. Slowly, Bram reached down and picked up the brush that had been with him on this journey, the familiar weight of it grounding him. It felt different in his paw now, lighter somehow, as if it too had been waiting for this moment. He held it out in front of him, feeling the air around him, sensing the wind that had returned. With a steady breath, Bram dipped the brush into the pigments, his heart beating in time with the rhythm of the wind. He had learned so much on his journey. The wind, the colors, the beauty of the world were all connected, and now it was time to paint again. As his brush met the sky, the colors bloomed in a way they never had before. Rich oranges, soft pinks, and deep purples filled the expanse above him, swirling and blending in perfect harmony. The wind moved with his brush, helping him create a masterpiece unlike anything he had ever done before. It wasn't just about the colors anymore. It was about the feeling, the connection, the sense of wonder that filled every stroke. Bram's eyes shone with joy as he stepped back to admire his work. The sky was alive with color, as if the wind itself had painted the world in the most beautiful hues imaginable. The colors danced across the horizon, creating a breathtaking display that stretched across the valley. The animals of the forest, who had been watching quietly from the shadows, now stepped forward, their eyes wide with awe. For the first time in what felt like forever, Bram smiled. His heart swelled with pride, not just for the masterpiece he had created, but for the realization that the wonder he had been searching for had always been within him. It was not the wind or the colors that had been lost. It was his ability to see the world with awe, to remember that beauty is found in the smallest of things, in the quiet moments and the simple truths. The valley, once again, was alive with color. The wind had returned, and with it, the sense of wonder that had always been the true source of Bram's art. Bram stood in the middle of the valley, his eyes on the sky, the wind lifting his fur as it whispered through the trees. He had found the colors again, but more importantly, He had found the wonder within himself. And that, he realized, was the truest masterpiece of all. Segment 9, A New Dawn. As the last brushstroke fell across the sky, Bram stood in awe of the vibrant canvas he had created. The colors were alive. Brilliant streaks of red, orange, and gold spiraled across the horizon, and the soft pinks and purples of the twilight blended seamlessly into the deepening blue of the night sky. The wind, gentle and warm, carried the scent of the forest to him, whispering its approval as it tousled his fur. For a moment, Bram simply stood there, taking in the beauty of the world he had rediscovered. The valley, once quiet and still, was now filled with life again. The creatures of the forest came out of their hiding places, drawn by the colorful display above. Birds flitted through the trees, and deer grazed in the meadows, their eyes lifted to the sky. Even the river, which had been so still during Bram's moments of doubt, seemed to hum with a new energy, its water sparkling under the moonlight. But Bram's heart was no longer filled with the anxiety and uncertainty that had clouded it before. Now there was only peace, a deep, quiet contentment. He had learned something important, that beauty was never lost, only hidden behind the fog of worry and fear. The wonder had always been there, waiting for him to see it, to open his heart and remember the joy of simply being alive. The animals of the valley gathered around him, their faces filled with awe. Bram felt a soft sense of gratitude wash over him as they looked up at the sky he had painted. He could feel their appreciation, but more than that, he could feel their connection to the land, to the wind, and to the colors. They understood, as he did now, that the world was full of hidden wonders, just waiting to be discovered. As the night wore on, the colors of the sky began to fade, softening into the deep blues of the night. But even as the masterpiece he had created slowly disappeared, Bram felt no sadness. He knew that the wind would return again the next evening, bringing with it new colors, new beauty to paint. But more importantly, he knew that the wonder within him, the connection to the world around him, would remain forever. With the first light of dawn creeping over the horizon, Bram sat on a soft patch of grass, looking out over the valley. His heart was light, his mind clear. The journey had taught him that true beauty was not something to be sought after, but something to be noticed, embraced, and cherished in every moment. And with that thought, he smiled, knowing that tomorrow, and every day after, would be another chance to paint the wind and to rediscover the wonder of the world all over again. The valley, once again, was full of life, and the wind, carrying with it the colors of the world, whispered through the trees. It was the beginning of a new day, and for Bram, it was the beginning of a new way of seeing. Segment 10, The Circle of Wonder. As the sun rose higher, casting golden rays across the valley, Bram felt a renewed sense of purpose. The sky, once again, was a canvas of soft hues, the morning light bringing with it a fresh wave of inspiration. He no longer felt the pressure of trying to create the perfect painting. There was no need for perfection anymore. The simple act of seeing, of being fully present in the world around him, had become enough. The animals of the valley, who had watched him with admiration the previous evening, now moved freely in the early light. The deer bounded playfully through the grass, the birds sang their morning songs, and the squirrels, ever curious, chattered excitedly as they scurried among the trees. Bram smiled, watching them with contentment. The world was alive with the energy of possibility, each moment unfolding with the promise of beauty. Bram's gaze turned to the distant ridge, now bathed in the soft glow of morning. He remembered his journey through the mist, how uncertain and lost he had felt when he first set out. But now, standing in the warmth of the sun, he saw it clearly. The ridge was not just a physical place. It had been a metaphor for the inner journey he had taken. He had crossed through the fog of doubt and fear to find clarity, to rediscover the wonder that lay within his own heart. The mist had been part of the process, showing him that sometimes we must step into the unknown in order to see the world with fresh eyes. He felt a deep sense of gratitude for everything he had learned. The colors of the wind were not something to be captured and held. They were something to be experienced in the moment, flowing and changing as the world did. The true beauty, he realized, was in the impermanence of it all. Every sunset, every breeze, every brushstroke was a fleeting gift, and the joy came not from holding on to them, but from appreciating them while they lasted. As the days stretched on, Bram returned to his favorite spot in the valley, where he had first painted the sky all those months ago. He dipped his brush into the pigments once more, this time with no plan in mind. He didn't need one. The colors flowed freely from his heart, swirling in the air as he let go of all expectations. The wind played with his strokes, guiding him, and for the first time in a long while, Bram painted purely for the joy of creation. The valley seemed to embrace his work, the landscape glowing in harmony with the colors of the sky. The animals gathered around, once again watching with awe, but this time, Bram didn't feel the need to impress them. He painted because it felt right, because the act of creation was a celebration of life itself. The wind, which had seemed so distant just a few nights ago, now danced joyfully through the trees, its invisible hand guiding his every move. As the sun began to set, Bram stepped back and looked at his work. The sky was painted in soft oranges and purples, the colors reflecting the calmness in his heart. He knew that tomorrow, the wind would blow again, and he would once more be ready to paint. But the lesson of the day was clear. The colors would always come when he was open to seeing them, when he allowed himself to embrace the wonder of the world, just as it was. With a deep, contented sigh, Bram sat down, his large body sinking into the soft grass. The valley, the sky, the wind, it all felt like home again. And for the first time, he understood that home wasn't just a place. It was the way he saw the world, the beauty in every moment, the joy in the simplest things. And in that moment, Bram knew he had found the greatest masterpiece of all, the ability to see with wonder, to paint not just the sky, but the very world around him in every shade of life. As the stars began to twinkle in the sky above, Bram smiled. Tomorrow was a new day, and with it, another chance to rediscover the wonder of the world. And that, he knew, was the truest art of all.